Hi guys, welcome to another session of News in 30 minutes. Today, let us look at some of the important issues on 30th and today, that is 31st of January 2024. Before I proceed with it, what I have observed is by doing news in 30 minutes every alternative day, the response is much better. Okay, as you can see, the views are higher, and I am seeing that the users or the viewers are responding and asking more queries much higher on alternative days rather than doing it every day. Okay, so because of this reason, because I have seen a better response, I am doing news in 30 minutes every alternative day, taking the important articles or issues on 2 days and then doing it on the respective or an alternative day. So this is how I'll proceed forward, also looking at the response and looking at the positiveness that messages that I have received from the students. I am going to continue like this. Okay, so you will be seeing the consistency will always be there, the important articles will always be covered. It is just that because the response is better, I'll be doing it 2 days once. Okay, so that is how the news in 30 minutes will go. So you don't have to worry about it, you can be consistent, you will not miss out on any articles. Okay, that we can promise. With that, let us get on with the first issue of the day. The first issue is responsibility of the state to protect maximum trees, the Supreme Court tells. Okay, so where is the responsibility of the state to protect maximum trees? It is talking about a zone called Taj Trapezium zone. Okay, so now the moment you got a keyword, now because you are preparing for prelims, you should develop the prelims perspective. You should develop the prelims perspective for that particular keyword. As I keep telling you, the prelims perspective is nothing but developing factual dimension. Okay, so here the factual dimension that you should develop is the Taj Trapezium zone. Okay, now let us develop the factual dimension on Taj Trapezium zone. So if I take Taj Trapezium zone and if I research on this zone, first I understand that this zone is spread across. This zone is spread across 10,400 square kilometer. The second is it is spread across 2 states. It is spread across 2 states. One is Uttar Pradesh, another is Rajasthan. In Rajasthan, only one district is covered, and the district is Bharatpur district. Okay, whereas in UP there are 5 districts. There is Agra, there is Firozabad, there is Atras, there is Mathura, and finally there is ETAH. Okay, so these are the 5 districts of Uttar Pradesh that constitutes the Taj Trapezium zone and the Bharatpur district of Rajasthan. Okay, so overall there are 6 districts, 2 states, and the overall area is 10,400 square kilometer. Okay, so this Taj Trapezium zone came into being in 1996 through a Supreme Court judgment. Okay, in this judgment, it was mainly to protect the monument of Taj Mahal. Okay, and to protect the monument of Taj Mahal from pollution. To protect the monument of Taj Mahal from pollution came this Taj Trapezium zone. Okay, so that is the next point. Okay, now as we dig deeper, you should understand that the Taj Trapezium zone comprises many monuments. It comprises many monuments. However, with this many monuments includes 3 World Heritage Sites. Amongst this many monuments, it constitutes 3 World Heritage Sites. One is Taj Mahal. The second is Agra Fort. The third is Fatehpur Sikri. So these are the 3 World Heritage Sites that come inside the Taj Trapezium zone. Okay, the next is Taj Trapezium zone as category of industries. Okay, categories of industries, and these categories of industries can be divided into 4 zones, and these 4 zones have been given different colors: red, green, orange and white. And the regulation, okay, the regulation increases from red. Red has the highest regulation and the white has the least regulation. Okay, so this is another point within the Taj Trapezium zone. And the last point that you should understand is the central government. The central government has created something called Taj Trapezium Zone Pollution Prevention and Control Authority. Okay, Taj Trapezium Zone Pollution Prevention and Control Authority, 1998. And this authority is created under a statute or a law called Environmental Protection Act, 1986. So I hope you understood how to derive the factual dimensions when you look at the keyword. Okay, so here the keyword was Taj Trapezium zone. So from prelims perspective, we have deduced the factual dimensions. To just reiterate or summarize, Taj Trapezium zone from prelims perspective, deducing the factual dimension. One, it is spread across 10,400 square kilometer. The next is it's spread across 2 states, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. And amongst these 2 states, it is spread across 6 districts, 5 in Uttar Pradesh and 1 in Rajasthan. In Rajasthan, you have Bharatpur district. In Uttar Pradesh, you have Agra, Firozabad, Atras, Mathura and Etah. In 1996, the Supreme Court judgment was given in order to protect Taj Mahal from pollution, which gave the genesis of the Taj Trapezium zone. And this Taj Trapezium zone has many monuments, and within those monuments comes 3 World Heritage sites, that is Taj Mahal, Agra Fort and Fatehpur Sikri. And the Taj Trapezium zone has different categories of industries that are segregated into 4 zones. One is red, green, orange and white. This is segregated on the basis of regulation on the amount of pollution that the industries can create. Okay, red as the highest regulation because it constitutes more pollution, white as the least regulation because it constitutes very less pollution. The next is the central government has created something called Taj Trapezium Zone Pollution Authority 1998, which this body is created, which derives its power from the law that is known as Environmental Protection Act 1986. Okay, so these are some of the important points that you should understand from the prelims perspective about Taj Trapezium zone. Okay, this is that extra research that you have to do to generate some points, which I am doing on your behalf, but I want you to learn the process, so that when you look at any other keywords in the future also, you will be able to use that keyword and deduce the factual information and make a notes in your book. Okay, so this completes the first issue of the day. The second issue is first ever survey puts India's snow leopard count at 718. Okay, so the topic here is snow leopard. Okay, and again let us deduce from the factual information, or let us deduce the factual dimensions, so that you learn purely from prelims perspective. This topic is mainly from prelims perspective. It's not relevant for mains perspective, and so is the previous topic like Taj Trapezium. There is main orientation from prelims rather than mains. Here also the main orientation is from prelims. So when it is from prelims, you always should look at the factual dimensions. Okay, so the first point, we have to know that this is the first ever survey. Okay, what is this first ever survey? It was known as SPAI. Okay, SPAI is Snow Leopard Population Assessment. Snow leopard population assessment in India in 2019. Okay, snow leopard population assessment in India in 2019. So it involved a 4-year survey. It is not easy to take to assess the population of snow leopard because they are high altitude and very shy animals. So it has taken 4 years for the survey to get completed, and this is the first survey that is dedicated solely for snow leopards. Okay, it started in 2019. It has taken 4 years, and who are all the stakeholders or who are all the participants in doing this assessment is 3 people. One is Worldwide Fund for Nature India, that is WWF India. The second is Nature Conservation Foundation. Nature Conservation Foundation. This is again another non-profit organization that is there in Mysore of Karnataka in India. Okay. The last is the Wildlife Institute of India. So these three organizations have taken up something called Snow Leopard Population Assessment of India 2019, which is the first ever survey in India that has given the number of snow leopards in India that is equivalent to 718. Okay, and this comes somewhere to 30% of global population of snow leopards. So India houses around, I'm sorry, not 30%, 15%. Okay, 15% of global population of snow leopards. Okay, so this is the information. Apart from this, what you should know is the snow leopard is classified as vulnerable in the IUCN status. Okay, and obviously it is a Schedule 1 species. It is a Schedule 1 species in Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Okay, the next is the threats that it faces are: one, it faces threats from ranging dogs. Okay, the second, it faces threats from human wildlife conflict. The third is it faces threats from poaching. Again, they can just ask you this. They have asked in previous years in environmental part of prelims, what are all the threats faced by Gangetic dolphin. So like that, they can ask you what are all the threats faced by snow leopards. So when they give you this, most of the people will think that this is wrong. Because leopards are there, how can dogs be the threat to leopards? So that is the reason why you should always read in in its proper format that the particular organization has given that information. Okay, so it faces threats of these three aspects. Okay, the next is again in India, if you have 718 snow leopards, okay, now the highest number of leopards are concentrated like this. First, the snow leopards are present in Ladakh. The second, it is present in Uttarakhand. The third is it is present in Himachal Pradesh. The fourth is it is present in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, the fifth is it is present in Sikkim. And the sixth is Jammu and Kashmir. As you can see, all are Himalayan states, and snow leopards are residents of high altitude parts of the mountains. However, this is how the division of the distribution of snow leopards are in India. This is 477. This is 124. The numbers are not important, so don't write it down. You will forget it anyways. So this information is just for the sake of you understanding, but you should know the order. Okay, Ladakh, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh. Then comes Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, and the last is Jammu and Kashmir. So this is the distribution of the snow leopards in India. Okay, so this completes this topic. So I hope you got this knack of trying to absorb information from prelims perspective. That is the entire motto of taking these two topics and giving you the factual dimension that orients you towards prelims perspective. Okay, so this completes the two issues. Let us go to the next issue. Now this issue is mainly from mains perspective. It is mainly important from your mains perspective. The reason is it is a very good article that talks about interstate migrants. It talks about interstate migrants. Okay, and because interstate migrants is a very important issue that is pertinent for your mains exam, there will always be one question on this in especially GS3 as well as GS2. You should have ample amount of factual information and dimensions to substantiate your answer. Okay, with that, now if you look at this, learning from Kerala and West Bengal on migrant workers. Okay, so the author very beautifully gives two models. Okay, the author gives you two models. One is Kerala model, and the second is West Bengal model. Okay, and why is it that this two model is important is, if you take migration, okay, migration happens mainly from the source to the destination. Migration happens mainly from the source to the destination. Okay, so here the source can be taken, can be taken as West Bengal, and the destination can be taken as Kerala. So just to give you a context, Kerala has around 35 lakh migrant workers. Okay, it has 35 lakh migrant workers, and 10 lakh, that is almost 1/3 of these migrant workers are from West Bengal. Okay, so if I take the destination as Kerala, the 1/3 of the source is coming from West Bengal. Okay, so in this way you can take migration and you can see how a model can be created at the destination, a model can be created at the source. Okay, so the Kerala model is basically a destination based model of migrant workers. West Bengal model is a source based model of migrant workers. Okay, so now once you understood the two models and how they are complementing one another, now let us understand what is Kerala model first. What is Kerala model first? As I told you, Kerala model is basically a destination based model. Okay, and in this Kerala model, the first is, once a migrant worker enters the state, this migrant worker has to register. This migrant worker has to register with the state labor office. Okay, so once the migrant worker registers with the state labor office, now the state government has data about that particular migrant worker, as well as the migrant worker can now become eligible for social health security. That migrant worker will now become eligible for social health security. So basically what the Kerala model does is, it creates something called the migrant workers become eligible for insurance. Okay, they become eligible for welfare schemes, and they also become eligible for their family's health care, and they also become eligible for educational projects that are run by Kerala government. Okay, now see, just by registering themselves in the state labor office, they are now eligible for social health security, insurance, welfare schemes, families, health care, as well as the educational projects. Okay, so this is what is the Kerala model. You should know that there is something called interstate migrant policy index. This index basically ranks the state governments on the basis of whose policy is very better when it comes to interstate migrants, and in this index the first rank goes to Kerala. Look at this. So this is something that you have to be proud of. This is something that can set an example for all the other states in India. The reason is, this migrants, okay, or the migrant workers welfare falls in concurrent list, and this particular aspect is mainly to be taken care by the state government. Okay, so the implementation always, you know that the concurrent list, the implementation will always lie within the state government, and that is where we have to work in coordination so that all states can standardize the way migrants are taken care of. Okay, anyways, barring that, I hope you understood what is Kerala model. The next is, let us now understand what is this West Bengal model. Okay, so if you take West Bengal model, as I told you, they are source based model. That is, we know that many migrants leave from West Bengal. Okay, so for this the government has set up something called Migrant Welfare Board. It has created something called Migrant Welfare Board. Okay, this Migrant Welfare Board first works on it works on preventing discrimination of migrant workers. It prevents discrimination of migrant workers. So what does this mean? This means many migrant workers, when they leave West Bengal and go to different states within India, they are labeled as Bangladeshis. They are labeled as Bangladeshis. So this stigma is something that the Migrant Welfare Board of West Bengal is trying to remove. Okay, which is a very, very important and very good thing, that we have to remove this prejudice, this discrimination that is terming the Bengal workers as Bangladeshis. Okay, the next is, it also will look into illegal detaining of its workers by police in other state. So in other states, migrants usually are treated as suspects. So there are very high chances that they are arrested, exploited. They are, put under some cases for false, pretext or context. So in those reasons, they are very, very vulnerable. So in this way, the Migrant Welfare Board will make sure that no type of illegal detention of the workers happens by the police in the other states. Okay. The next is this particular Migrant Welfare Board also tries to provide allowance for its workers of rupees 5,000 after the age of 60. Okay, after the age of 60, they get rupees 5,000 as allowance. The next is, it also tries to provide education to its children, the migrant children. Okay, so these are something that the Migrant Welfare Board of West Bengal is doing. So I hope you understood how the destination as well as the source are complementing one another. Okay, so this defines the very good example of competitive as well as coordinated federalism. Okay, it is a very good example of competitive as well as coordinated federalism. Okay, coordinated because source is creating its own way of protecting its migrants. Destination is creating its own way of protecting its migrants. Out migration and in migration. Okay, competition because overall the economy will grow and overall India will progress. So in this way, this is a very good model that shows Kerala and West Bengal is setting an example for the entire states of India to also inculcate whichever model that they can. For example, if you take state of any state that has more out migrants like Uttar Pradesh, they can always take in West Bengal model. If you take any state like Maharashtra or Karnataka where the in-migration is more, they can always take up Kerala model. So this is setting the precedent for welfare of migrants. As I told you, this is how you have to analyze the migrant situation of India, and this analysis or opinion is how you get more marks in mains. Mains is more fun. Mains is more about your analysis that will help you derive your maturity. So mains is something that you can have fun with. But to have that fun, you have to clear prelims. So please make sure that you start preparing for prelims. Please don't procrastinate it. Okay. So this is about this issue. So I hope it was helpful and I hope you understood the issue. Okay. The next is India ranks 93 out of 180 countries in Corruption Perception Index 2023. In 2023, India's overall score was 39, while in 2022 it was 40. The score. India's rank in 2022 was 85. Okay. So to just give you a table, see, I'll just give you the table. India's one is score, another is rank. Okay. Always when you're reading facts, make a table so that it becomes easy. This is 2022 and this is 2023. So when you do this, okay. So now India's score is 40 in 2022 and 39 in 2023. So score wise, there has not been any progress. It has remained stagnant. Okay. And rank, it was 85 in 2022. It has gone to 90 in 2023. So it has declined. Okay. So when you make this and keep, okay, this will, make it more easier for you to absorb the information rather than reading it like this. Okay. So as much as possible, try to reduce reading in English, the factual information. To always try to read in tables, the factual information. Okay. Make your own tables and in that way, it becomes easier for you to absorb that information. Okay. Anyways, now why have I taken this concept is because first thing first, you have to realize such information usually will not come both in prelims as well as mains. Okay, it is useless. Such information will not come both in prelims as well as mains. Why am I telling you this? The reason is because look at this. India is highly corrupted will any government ask such question in its competitive exams? Think about it. Any government, why will the government ask about some negative stance taken by a foreign institution about India in India's competitive exams? It will never happen. Okay, so usually there are very less chances for negative information given by foreign institutions about India to be asked in competitive exams. Very less chance. Okay, so where can you use this particular table? You can use this table in GS2 or in GS3. Let us say you want to substantiate a point where India is suffering from corruption. In that one point, you can use this particular fact as an example to justify your stance. Okay, so for usefulness of such information is very less. That is, you can use it in some point as a justification, but this itself will not come as a question in your mains or your prelims. That is, it will not be there that India is seeing widespread corruption. Elaborate. It is not going to be like that. The questions will not have negative connotations. So usually don't try to read much whenever the information is very negative. Okay. However, since we are dealing with this issue, let us just talk about a little bit about this corruption perception index. Okay, this is basic general knowledge that you should know. One is corruption perception index is given by Transparency International. This Transparency International is a German based non-governmental organization. Okay, and this Transparency International has told in the entire world there is weakening justice. In the entire world there is weakening justice, which is making corruption unchecked. There is weakening justice systems. That is making corruption unchecked. Not only in India, it has told anywhere and everywhere in the world there is weakening justice systems that is making the corruptions unchecked. That is a statement given by Transparency International. Okay. The next is this corruption perception index is released by Transparency International, and in this corruption perception index it ranks 180 countries. Now, how does it rank? As you can see, this word called perception. Basically what they do is they look at the perception of two groups of people. One is they look at the perception of experts and they look at the perception of business people. Okay, and what is the perception? They are looking at the perception of these two people on public sector corruption. Okay, so to repeat, corruption perception index always assesses the perception of corruption, not objectifying the measurement of corruption. That you should have an idea. Okay. Now, when you look at the perception of corruption, while ranking the 180 countries, it is going to check the perception of the public sector corruption amongst two groups of people. One is the experts and other is the business people. On their perception, there will be a scale of 0 to 100. 0 being highest corruption. 0 having highest corruption and 100 having least corruption. Okay, so this is what is the corruption perception index. So I hope you understood this particular aspect. This much is enough. You don't have to get into the depth of it. I have given you enough information that in case if my understanding is weak and they may ask this in the prelims exam also, you should be able to answer. Usually they don't, but if they do also, now you have good information to answer as well. Okay, but usually one thing you should know, whenever a foreign entity is giving negative information about India, very less chances that these things will come in the exam. Okay, but it is fine. So we have to learn this. So we have learned it. That is good. So let us go on to the next issue of the day. The next issue is again from the mains perspective. Okay, very good article that is given by the author. The author tells populism does not help in public health. So populism, basically the author is talking about political measures that are very short term in nature, that tries to attract and grab the people's attention rather than trying to do good to people in the long term. That is what is populism. Okay. Anyways, so the author says that the populism does not help public health. Again, don't worry about the negative connotation in the heading. But in this article, the author gives 3 very good case studies. Okay, the author gives 3 very good case studies which exemplifies how ineffective our public health policy is. Okay, so the first case study that the author gives is the case study of dengue. Okay, the first case study is the case study of dengue. So dengue is an annual phenomenon. Okay, that is, there is a dengue epidemic that happens every year, and this happens during monsoon season. This happens when there is more water that is standing, and in this water that is standing there is mosquitoes that will breed, and these mosquitoes are the ones that are the vectors which help in the transmission of this disease called dengue. Now, though it is an annual affair, the entire government machinery is focused on short-term measures. It is focused on short-term measures rather than focusing on long-term measures. That is the elaboration given by the author. So what is it that we are doing? Every year, whenever there is a epidemic of dengue, we try to set up relief camps and we try to treat the symptoms. What is the long-term goal that the author says should have been? The long-term goal should have been developing effective vaccines and helping develop proper vector bionomics. Okay, like understanding what is this vector transmitting the diseases, how to destroy this vector. That is known as vector bionomics. The next is effective vaccines, developing effective vaccines in order to stop dengue. So instead of focusing on long-term measures, we are more focused on short-term measures because we are interested in populism. Okay, this is the first important case study that the author gives. Okay, the next case study, the second case study that the author gives is about Poshan Abhiyan. Okay, the author overlaps, this is case study 2. The author overlaps Poshan Abhiyan with 5th NFHS survey that happened in 2019-21. Okay, in Poshan Abhiyan, there is a target to reduce. There is a target to reduce stunting. There is a target to reduce stunting, undernutrition, anemia, and low birth weight. Okay, there is a target to reduce stunting by 2%. Okay, anemia by 2%. Undernutrition by 2%, anemia by 3%, and low birth weight by 2% every year. Okay, so this basically is the target. Now look at this. I have made a table. Okay, instead of reading it in English, if you make this table and read it, you will be able to easily absorb the information. This is what I keep telling you. Always when you are reading any fact, make tables. These tables will make it easier for you to absorb the information. Okay, so again repeating, Poshan Abhiyan is there to reduce stunting by 2%, undernutrition by 2%, anemia by 3%, low birth weight by 2%. Okay, that is every year. So this is the target. Okay, now this Poshan Abhiyan was launched. However, when NFHS survey came, okay, the percentage of children that are stunted remained at 35.5%. The percentage of children that are underweight, is 32%. The percentage of people, anemia amongst children, anemia in children is there at 67%, and anemia in women is there at 59%. Look at this fact. Okay, now look at this. You overlap the Poshan Abhiyan with NFHS 5 survey, we can see that again there is a failure of public health policy. This is the second case study that the author gives that says that there is a failure of public health policy. Failure in the matter of we are trying to more focus on the short term gains rather than looking at the long term aspects. The third case study that the author gives is the overlapping of tuberculosis in India with USA. The author says USA and India both are using the same medicines. USA and India are both using the same medicines. But if you take India, India has reported 21.4 lakh tuberculosis cases, whereas USA has reported just 8,331 tuberculosis cases. Here, the prevalence rate of tuberculosis is 210 cases per 1 lakh population, whereas here the prevalence rate is 2.5 cases per 1 lakh population. Look at this. Where is 21.4 lakh and where is 8,000? Why is it that India is also using the same medicines for tuberculosis, US is also using the same medicines for tuberculosis, and why the prevalence rate of USA is so low whereas the prevalence rate of India is so high? Okay, it is almost 100 times high, the prevalence rate. Why is it that India is suffering with this? The reason why it is suffering with this is, in India, we are more focused on the medicine, but tuberculosis is a socio-economic issue. Okay, so unless we don't focus on this socio-economic issue, we will not be able to clear out tuberculosis. What do you mean by socio-economic issue? It means we have to fight poverty, we have to create sanitation, we have to make sure that the urban congestion that is happening in slums should not happen. So when only we fight these factors, we'll be able to cure the tuberculosis in India. So whatever the author says is, if we have to fight public diseases, okay, then our public health policy must be very, very comprehensive. It must be very, very comprehensive. So the author gives 3 case studies to exemplify that we are purely focusing either on only medicines or we are purely focusing on only curative approach. Okay, only curative approach or only medicines will not work. We have to work on preventive approach. We have to work on multi-stakeholder approach. Okay, if we don't have multi-stakeholder approach, we are seeing how tuberculosis is still a problem. We are seeing how the other case studies like how malnutrition is still a problem, and also how dengue or other vector-borne diseases are still a problem. Okay, so this again is a very, very good case study that it talks about how public health should be more comprehensive, should work on preventive along with curative strategies, and should adopt a multi-stakeholder approach. And one more very innovative idea that the author gives is, the author tells, in public health, what the author tells is, instead of the public health being under health ministry, the author tells this public health should be under the prime minister or the chief minister. Okay, now the author says this should be modeled on the same lines of space or atomic energy. If you take space or atomic energy, these departments are not under any ministries. These departments will come under the prime minister. In the same lines, the public health should also be put under prime minister. By putting that under prime minister, one, it gives a degree of autonomy and it gives more space for experts to voice out how they can help in policy making. Okay, so this is one innovative measure that the author tells how the public health in India can be more streamlined. Okay, so again, it's a very, very beautiful article that you can use in your exam and especially in your mains. Again, look at this, how beautifully the dimensions have come out, how beautifully you can use this in your answer in GS2 as well as GS3. You can also use this in your essays as well. So these case studies are gold. So please make sure that you are making note of these case studies. Okay. Again, let us go to the next issue. The next issue is growth mania can be injurious to society. Okay. Another very well written article. Okay. It matters that growth in India is unequal, but it is not that the spirit of democracy to have such divergent economic outcomes. So basically, let me simplify. They always use this jargons to confuse people. Let me just simplify what this author is trying to say. The author is trying to give you the dichotomy view of what is growth and what is development. Okay, so growth is a quantitative factor. Growth is a quantitative factor. Example is your GDP. Development is qualitative factor. Okay, example is your education or literacy. Okay, example is your infant mortality. Example is your maternal mortality. Okay, see, when you assess all these things, example is let us say the housing. Example is, you can also take nutrition. So when you take all these things, when you take both the social factors as well as economic factors, then that becomes development. When you purely take economic factors or economic measurements, then that becomes growth. So what the author is telling is, increasingly we are coming under the aura of growth. We are emphasizing more on growth. The author says, if you go anywhere, there is only talk about India trying to become $5 trillion economy, India trying to become second largest economy or third largest economy in the world. So this narrative that we keep looking at is basically emphasizing more on growth, and development is something that is taking a backdrop. That is the entire essence of this article. So just let us look at it. Let us look at how the author will justify regarding this growth and development. So according to the author, we are overemphasizing on growth, and hence this is getting neglected. For this, let us see how the author will justify. Okay, the author says, when the recent World Economic Forum happened in 2024, it was said the president of the World Economic Forum emphasized that India is going on track to become $10 trillion economy. Okay, so there was widespread appreciation that India is on track to become $10 trillion economy. It is going to be the future market for all the entire world's technology as well as the world's products, services. So all these things were told. The second is, the Indian government is also focusing on making India a $5 trillion economy by 2025. That is the next goal. Okay. However, see, this growth, the focusing on growth is a legitimate aspiration. The author says that also. Focusing on growth is a legitimate aspiration. The author tells this is not wrong. Focusing on growth is not wrong, because the focusing on growth will always help provide reasonable standard of living. It always provides reasonable standard of living. Okay, why it provides reasonable standard of living is, as the growth happens, at least the poverty level will drop, because the poor people will at least get access to basic necessities of food and shelter. This may not completely be eradicating the poverty or eradicating eradicating some disadvantages of the poor, but it at least will give some type of basic necessities. So growth is a legitimate aspiration. The author is not against the growth. However, the author says we are overemphasizing growth, and that is in turn neglecting development. Now, what is the justification for the development part? The author says that World Inequality Report 2022. The World Inequality Report 2022 has described India as a poor country. Has described India as a poor country with affluent elite. A poor country with affluent elite. Look at this. Now this statement is used in the World Inequality Report. The reason why it is using this is because there is widespread inequality that is happening in India, and this inequality is only widening with time, and it is not seeing any type of reduction. That inequality can be within urban areas. That inequality is between urban as well as rural areas. Even if you take the economy, you are seeing widespread inequality between agricultural economy, the manufacturing economy, as well as services economy. So within the sectors of the economy also there is inequality. Within the population in urban and rural area also we are seeing the inequality. This is something that the author says we have to fight for. Growth is a legitimate aspiration, but that should not be overstretched to neglect the developmental aspect of the country's trajectory or progress. This is what the author says. The author also says that if you take the sixth economic census, that was done in 2013-14, okay, so according to this, 51.7% of the workforce is employed in rural areas. Okay, 51.7% is employed in rural areas. Amongst this 51.7% who are employed in rural areas, 30% are agricultural workers. Okay, 30% are agricultural workers and 70% are non-agricultural workers. Okay, since there is no space here, I'll go to the next page, but I'm still talking about this development aspect. So let me just continue it here. So the developmental aspect is not happening. For this, the author says, the author takes the example of sixth economic census, okay, 2013-14, and the author says, according to this, 59% of the population or the workforce is employed in rural areas. And among this 51%, 51% of the workforce is employed in rural areas. Among this 51%, the 69% is, I told 70, but 69%, let us make it 70 only, don't worry. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Okay, 70% is in non-agricultural and 30% is agricultural labor. Okay, so when the author takes this sixth economic census and says 70% in rural areas, you have overall workforce of India of 51%, and within 51%, 70% are in non-agricultural, 30% are in agricultural labor. The author says the real wage rate in the last 10 years has been just 4.6%. It has risen by 4.6% for agricultural laborers. Okay, in the last 10 years, the real wage rate in the last 10 years for agricultural laborers has risen by 4.6%, whereas if you take non-agricultural laborers, the real wage rate in the last 10 years has remained stagnant. Okay, so to summarize, the author gives a very good view of growth versus development. Growth is a quantitative concept which is more focusing on the economic parameters, whereas development is a holistic concept which focuses on the socio-economic development parameters. The author says we are overemphasizing on growth, but growth itself is a legitimate aspiration. However, when we overemphasize on growth, the development will take a back seat. The author says if you go to WEF 2024 that happened, there was more cajoling of India with respect to the growth rather than speaking about development. If you take Indian government is also more focusing on the growth rather than development. So this has to change, because the author tells in development, the World Inequality Report has told that India is described as a country, a poor country with affluent elite. Okay, and also by taking the sixth economic census, the author says the real wage rate of non-agricultural laborers in the last 10 years in rural areas has remained stagnant, and the real wage rate of agricultural laborers has also been a meager 4.5% rise in the last 10 years. This shows that development is shadowed by growth. So this is where the author says we have to focus on development as much as growth. Again, a very, very beautiful analysis of how a development and growth are interlinked and interrelated and should be balanced in the progress of any country. Okay, very good article for GS3 as well as GS2. So again, in the initial part of the session, I focused on the prelims perspective about developing factual dimensions, and in the later part I focused on the mains perspective, how you have to develop different perspectives and dimensions to analyze an issue. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed the session. If you have enjoyed the session, please make sure that you like, share as well as subscribe. Thank you so much for all the love and support, guys. Please keep tuning in. Please spread this particular program to other friends so that they also make use of this. There is more views that incentivizes me also to do this on a regular basis. Thank you so much. I'm going to see you in the next News in 30 minutes. Bye.